Does the world need another food delivery app? Will another initial coin offering help with the global recession? Do we really need another hookup app? Those were some of the questions we had asked of the students in the Emerging Technologies and Social Impact Challenge Lab. This particular class is being offered through the Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship Development, which is offered in the Industrial Engineering and Operations Research Department of the UC Berkeley College of Engineering. I wanted to pass on some lessons and stories from that class, including student projects, the 5 methods that we had employed in the class, which you might find useful, as well as the top 3 lessons and the top 3 projects from the course. The questions that were asked were posed to the students of the Emerging Technologies and Social Impact Lab, and they had in turn formed teams between 4 and 6 students, and their goal was to create a startup from scratch, from ideation through the creation of prototypes, go-to-market, the profit and loss statement, and every step along the way ending with the actual pitch. Let me start with 5 methods that we had deployed. The first one is the Berkeley Entrepreneurship Method, and this was done with the able assistance of Iklak Sidhu and Ken Singer from the Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship Technology. And the idea here and why it appeals to me is because it is a multidisciplinary method. This means that people from engineering, business school, as well as creative disciplines and the liberal arts can participate in a startup team and create better solutions through the diversity that is included in each startup. And of course, we did have a requirement where at least one of the students needed to be from the computer science department, because we wanted to build real prototypes during one semester. The second component, or the second method for the class, was design thinking. I personally became infected with design thinking while I was working at Netscape in the mid-90s for Ben Horowitz. And the idea here is to have empathy for the user and to try to understand what the user's wants and needs are. Too many times I see teams starting to create code without thinking about what the problem is and how the solution is going to address the problem. You might be familiar with the term problem-solution fit. By talking to the end users, conducting surveys, looking at how they work, where they work, and trying to have more empathy and understand what they want and need, you'll simply come up with a better problem-solution fit. The next, or the third component of the class was a bunch of primers on disruptive tech. So we gave students the foundation for Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and a bunch of the fintech concepts, including blockchain. So they were able to understand what the inherent value was in each of them, how they worked, and we were able to explain that. The fourth component of the class, and I think this was probably the students' favorite, and this was guest lectures. So every class we would bring in somebody from usually industry, but sometimes fellow academics, and they would talk about how disruptive technology is applied in real life. And we also tried to pick examples where the disruptive technology had a social impact. So we invited people from startups which were designed to foster better inclusion, including helping the unbanked. We also had people from the public sector, trying to get charitable organizations in some cases reformed, or in other cases more efficient. So there were a variety of guests and lecturers in the course. The next component was, of course, the coaching, and this is where we asked people to pick a mentor from the outside, meaning from industry, and they would often go to conferences or to other departments or colleagues or friends and family, and those people would help them with prototyping. Sometimes they would go to blockchain at Berkeley, the student-led group, and they would get assistance with the creation of the profit and loss statement, the go-to-market plan, or the actual prototype. Of course, the coaching was done by the instructors, myself included, and sometimes we would have a guest instructor. So those were the 5 elements of the class, or the 5 methods, with the entrepreneurship method, design thinking, disruptive tech, guest lectures, and then the in-class coaching. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the top 3 lessons that we took away from the course. And in some cases, there are bloopers because people learn better by looking at mistakes. So the first one is about technology. Technology is often thought of as the value prop and the raison d'être, but it's not. It's a means to an end. It's the enabler. You still need to focus on the human need, whatever it is, inefficiency. Maybe somebody wants to meet a gap or plug a gap that exists, or make more money, or make the world a better place. It's still that basic human need that you're fulfilling. The second thing that we try to impart in the class, and kind of one of the more important lessons, is articulating your value proposition. If you have a startup, it's actually very hard. A lot of people think that it's about features. Oh, I want to do these 3 things. Or some people think that it's about, oh, my value prop is going to be an attractive and a usable user interface. No, that's really a given. That should be something that is there by default, or is table stakes. And then the third thing that people thought about is like, oh, I'm just going to do it because people are going to care and it's a nice thing to do. No, at the end of the day, it is an entrepreneurship course. You do need to make money. You need to have a social impact. That needs to be one of the components, but you need to have an actual business plan, and somebody's going to need to have a reason to give you money and to adopt your solution, because people don't just show up and download your app or buy your offering just because it's the nice thing to do. And then the third thing that I try to impart is the concept of entropy and chaos. The fact that most of the things happen when you simply take a chance. The more important thing here was that I gave him a lesson from real life, where I had applied for a job when I was an architect. I was actually a building architect in a previous life, and I remember not getting any responses. And then I took a chance, and I saw this one position which said software architect, and I thought this was a regular architect, a building architect who designed very soft shapes. It turned out that I was completely wrong. They looked at my application when I sent it in, and they said, what a muppet, he applied for the wrong job. And but I ended up sending my portfolio. They had another opening for a user interface designer, and they ended up hiring me anyway. So that was the job at Netscape. So you simply never know. So when you're creating a startup and you're working on your solution, take chances, including really silly, far-reaching, kind of far-out opportunities that you could pursue. So those are the 3 lessons. Now let me highlight the top 3 projects that emerged from the class. One of them was RipChain, and you can see here that their idea was to create wills and trusts and put them on the blockchain. So normally you need a lot of money to create a will and trust. Why not templatize it? Why not automate it? And why not put it on a blockchain so that it's immutable and people don't argue when somebody passes on? This particular team moved on to the Blockchain Accelerator, which was a joint venture between a blockchain at Berkeley, a student-led group, the Haas Business School, and the Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship Development. Wonderful concept. The second one that I wanted to feature was Incredibail. And this particular one talked about the fact that bail in general is very predatory. And people charge extraordinary fees, and the people charge those fees cannot help themselves, and they come from segments of society where they're already facing handicaps and other struggles. So why not create a system where you could have a peer-to-peer sourcing of bail? A number of government officials are trying to do away with bail completely. Why not take the intermediate step and see if we could maybe create an algorithm for the flight risk and put smart contracts around the bail on the blockchain and see what happens there. And then the last one was called Steel Deal, and the concept here was fractional ownership, and this is for San Francisco real estate. And smart contracts would get created, and there would be two pools of people. The 30% pool, that's the 30% of the investment. Let's say a house costs $1 million, so you got to put up $300,000. Those would be the tenants. And then there's the 70% pool, and this is the pool of the investors. So this makes housing more affordable, again, utilizing disruptive technology to make a social impact. The last thing that I wanted to pass on is that we try to take the 5 methods, the 3 lessons, and sort of this disruptive technology and social impact curriculum and pass it on to other universities. And I personally went with 2 other lecturers to New Orleans to mentor professors from historically Black colleges and universities about how to incorporate emerging technology, including fintech and blockchain, in their curricula. The event also took place in New Orleans during Halloween, so what could possibly go wrong? But we did focus on the ethnographic method of inquiry, so we only went to Bourbon Street to observe. I hope that you had enjoyed this quick overview of the emerging technology and social impact. I think this is timely because we're facing a pandemic. All of the recent events, including Black Lives Matter, I think that we need to use technology for good. And I hope that you consider the emerging technologies and social impact class when trying to make change in the world. And I also hope that you look at some of the other best of videos in this series. Thank you very much. My name is Luke Kowalski, and I'm teaching at the Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship Technology. Have a great day.